Welcome back to Flying Fundamentals, a guide to the basics of aviation from the staff of ATIS 24, the official ATC roleplay server for ptfs on Roblox. This video makes up the official ATC 24 guide. You are not required to watch this video to join ATC 24, but the information covered is base knowledge that all members should be familiar with. My name is MJ, and I'll be taking you through this lesson's topics: ATIS, METAR, and TAF. Today we'll start by looking at what ATIS, METAR, and TAF are used for, and what they look like in real-life aviation. We'll then look at how we utilize these tools specifically on ATC 24. Timestamps for each section will be given on the video timeline and in the video description, should you wish to skip a section or to go back and recap. As always, if you're just starting out on ATC 24, it's recommended you skip to the ATC 24 section, in this case Chapter 4, to receive the ATC 24 relevant information only and to avoid being bombarded with information not needed for ATC 24 roleplay. We'll start by exploring what ATIS is in real life, how to read it, and how to use it. ATIS is an acronym standing for Automatic Terminal Information Service, and it is a method used to convey information from air traffic controllers to pilots efficiently and without interrupting other radio communications. Let's explore this acronym. The system is considered automatic, as pilots are provided with a 24/7 stream of information, or for as long as the airport is open, without having to wait for ATC to be available to pass the information along. This information can be transferred to the pilot in one of two ways: via data link, transferring the information electronically from a computer in the control tower to the aircraft's computer in the cockpit, displayed on a screen for the pilot as shown on the right. This is known as DATIS, or Data Link ATIS. The other method is via voice, whereby the information is broadcast repetitively on a dedicated radio frequency, which the pilot can tune their radio to at any point to listen to the information. Listen to an example from London's Stansted Airport.
Stansted information, uniform, time 1250, automatic, runway news 22, runway 22, dry, ground is...
Terminal is an aviation byword for airport. But this part of the acronym is letting us know that the information within an ATIS pertains to a specific airport rather than to an entire region or group of airports. I stands for information, and ATISes contain a lot of it. The information normally included in ATISes includes the name of the airport or aerodrome, the ATIS designator, the time when the ATIS was generated, the types of runway approaches currently in use, the currently active runways, any significant runway surface conditions such as ice or standing water, the airport's current transition level, METAR, and TAF. The items highlighted in red will be covered in greater detail later on. Finally, there is service, as ATIS is a service for both pilots and controllers, as it allows pilots to get information from their chosen airport at their own leisure without having to wait for a controller to be available, and without a controller having to spend valuable time verbally passing the information along. ATISes are typically very information dense, making use of many acronyms and are not always beginner friendly. To add to the confusion, different airports will format their ATISes in slightly different ways from each other, dependent on where they are located in the world. This example is from Dulles International Airport in Virginia. We can use it to identify some common features which you can look for in all other ATISes. This first section is known as the title of the ATIS. It lays out information such as the aerodrome name, given here as Gulls International. It will then give the designator for the ATIS, which is a single letter. In this case, we are on designator S for Sierra. This practice is done to ensure both controllers and pilots have the most recent version of the ATIS, as it's normally updated every 30 minutes. And every time it is updated, the letter moves along the alphabet. So, for the next iteration of this ATIS, it will have the designator T for Tango. Finally, there is the timestamp of the ATIS, given in 24-hour time, seen here with 1300, indicating 1 p.m. The letter Z, Zulu, after the time, is known as Zulu time. It's the standard time zone for aviation, and it relates to UTC/GMT. So the time listed on this ATIS is 1 p.m. UTC. The next section is a report on the weather at the airport. The current weather is given in the form of METAR, known as decoded METAR, which we will cover later. And although it's not used in this ATIS, occasionally future weather which is forecast will be given in a form of TAF, known as decoded TAF, which we will also cover later. The next section is the main bulk of airport information, detailing the approach in use, which is ILS in this instance, the meaning of which we will cover in another video. The runways in use, in this case, one right and one left for landings, and runway 30 for departures. The next section is the most variable of all the sections. It is called the NOTAMs. This stands for Notice to Airmen, or Notice to Aviation, or Notice to Air Missions, dependent on which country you ask. But they all relate to the same thing. Within this section, anything and everything deemed as important for pilots to know is placed. This could include snow advisories, bird sightings, runway conditions, non-standard procedures, military operations, or temporary flight restrictions. The example given here is to let pilots know that the navigational aid RML is currently out of service. You will find a very similar final section on all ATISes around the world, with it being some derivation of requesting the pilot to advise to ATC that they have the current ATIS information on board their aircraft. This is a final check to make sure the pilot has the correct information with the most up-to-date warnings and procedures, hence why the ATIS designator is referenced again. As we spoke about, contained within ATIS is METAR. But what is it? METAR stands for Meteorological Aerodrome Report. It is a format for weather reporting predominantly used in aviation. Breaking down this acronym, the MET standing for meteorological indicates that it is to do with the weather. The A for aerodrome indicates that it's the local weather to a specific airport. And report indicates that it is passed on to both controllers and pilots so that they are aware of the current weather conditions. As covered previously, our example ATIS included decoded METAR, where that weather information is in almost plain English. This is not how METAR looks in its raw form, however. This is an example of uncoded METAR. It appears very complicated, but simplifies when you begin to break it down. The first 4 letters indicate the location of the report, which is always an airport or aerodrome. Every aerodrome in the world has a different 4-letter code assigned to it by the International Civil Aviation Organization, known as an ICAO code. So this is what is used. This example, Echo Golf Lima Lima, is the ICAO code for London Heathrow. Next up is the timestamp of when the METAR was generated. You'll notice that, similar to the ATIS format, the letter Z for Zulu pops up, indicating that we are working in Zulu time, which is UTC/GMT. The difference here is that the timestamp includes the date as well as the time. The first 2 digits indicate the day of the month, so in this example it is 20 past noon on the 30th of the month, UTC. Occasionally, this section may be replaced by the word auto, indicating an automatic report that is constantly updated by weather sensors and stations, so a timestamp to show the recentness of the report is unnecessary. The following section displays the current wind direction and speed at the airport. The first 3 digits of the 5-digit string indicate the direction of the wind given in degrees. So here the wind is blowing at a heading of 240 degrees, roughly southwest. The following 2 digits indicate the wind speed, in this case 15 knots. The unit knots is indicated by the KT. If the wind speed is incredibly varied and changeable, the gusting speed of the wind may be given by the inclusion of a G. For example, 24015G 27 KT means that the wind speed is 15 knots with occasional gusts up to 27 knots. In the even more unlikely scenario that the wind direction is also extremely varied, an additional section is added. It's formatted as a 3-digit bearing, then a V, standing for varying between, and then another 3-digit bearing. So it shows where the wind is varying between. In this example, the wind is varying between 200 and 280 degrees. Then comes visibility. 4 digits on their own indicate the prevailing visibility, which is the average visibility in all directions from the airport. It is given in meters. So here the visibility is 8,000 meters or 8 kilometers. If a reading of 9999 is seen, this indicates that the visibility is greater than 10 kilometers. 4 zeros indicates a visibility of less than 5 meters. In circumstances where there is reduced visibility in only one particular direction from the airport, a minimum visibility reading is also given in the format of 4 numbers to once again indicate the distance in meters, as well as a direction indication. This example here is is SW standing for southwest. So if this was included in our METAR, the full visibility indicated would be a prevailing visibility of 8,000 meters with reduced visibility of 3,000 meters to the southwest only. Another optional inclusion for METARs, not in our example, is runway visual range, which is the maximum distance from a particular runway from which a pilot could still see it clearly. It's given in the format of R, standing for runway visual range, plus the runway name, / 4 digits indicating the distance in meters. For example, R27R/3000 indicates that the runway visual range for runway 27 right is 3,000 meters or 3 kilometers. The next section is the present weather at the aerodrome, such as rain or fog or hail. It's given in the format of a single character qualifier plus a double character identifier. The qualifier is either a plus, indicating a heavy variant, a minus, indicating a light variant, or nothing, indicating a moderate variant. There are over 30 different dual letter weather identifiers, but the most common are BR for mist, DZ for drizzle, FG for fog, GR for hail, RA for rain, SH for showers, and SN for snow. In our example, we have a minus and RA, indicating that the present weather is light rain. Note that multiple identifiers can be grouped together. For example, plus SHRA would indicate heavy rain showers. We then come to a description of the current cloud locations above the airport. This is given in the format of a 3-letter description of the cloud cover, followed by a 3-digit altitude in hundreds of feet to indicate the height of the cloud's base. Of these descriptions, few stands for few and indicates that 1 or 2/8 or octaves of the sky are covered by cloud. SCT stands for scattered, where 3 to 4/8 are covered. BKN is broken and it indicates 5 to 7/8 are covered. And when the cloud is completely covering the sky, OVC for overcast is used. So our first example is few 010. This indicates that there are 1 to 2/8 of cloud coverage at an altitude of 1,000 feet. And then our example is BKN 025, indicating a broken layer of clouds at 2,500 feet. There is also the non-standard descriptor NCS, standing for no significant cloud. For the rare occasions when visibility is greater than 10 kilometers in all directions, there is no weather significant aviation, and there is no significant cloud cover, the visibility, weather, and cloud sections can all be replaced with the single word CAVOK, pronounced K-O-K. The next 5 characters indicates the air temperature and dew point, which is a measure of humidity, in degrees Celsius, in the format temperature/dew point. So in this example, the temperature is 18 degrees Celsius and the dew point is 15 degrees Celsius. If either reading is not currently available, it is replaced by slashes. So in our example, if the dew point wasn't available, it would appear as 18///. If either value is negative, it is preceded by an M. So M01/02 would indicate a temperature of -1 degree and a dew point of +2 degree. The next section indicates QNH, standing for Query Nautical Height, which is a measure of atmospheric pressure adjusted to mean sea level, which is used by pilots to set their altimeter, which is the altitude reading instrument, to show altitude above sea level. The format for this is either Q plus 4 digits or A plus 4 digits. Q indicates that the 4-digit value of pressure is given in the unit hectopascals. So in our example, the QNH is 983 hectopascals. A stands for altimeter, and it is a different unit, mainly used in the US. If A plus 4 digits is used, then the 4-digit reading is given with the unit inches of mercury. The final section of the METAR is trend, which is what is expected to happen very shortly after the METAR is generated, perhaps even before the next iteration of the METAR is released. This section is essentially another tiny METAR with only the relevant sections which are going to change included. New codes to watch out for include BECMG, meaning becoming, tempo, standing for temporarily, NOSIG, standing for no significant change, NSW, standing for no significant weather, AT, meaning at, FM, meaning from, and TL, meaning until. So in this example, there is likely to be temporarily prevailing visibility of 3,000 meters with moderate rain and broken clouds at 800 feet. That was a lot. Congratulations on making it through. If you would like to, pause the video here and attempt to decode this METAR yourself. The answer will be revealed in 3, 2, 1. Reading METAR quickly and accurately is an important skill in aviation in order to get a good understanding of the current weather conditions presenting at an airport, and any extra risks or precautions that may need to be taken because of them. Whilst you're learning, you may find it useful to make use of METAR decoding websites, such as e6bx.com, which can help you to break down METARs into chunks and decode them to help you find any mistakes that you may have made. You'll be pleased to know that this section is much shorter, owing to the fact that METAR and TAF are incredibly similar, with TAF being METAR in the future. TAF stands for Terminal Aerodrome Forecast, and it provides weather forecasts for specific aerodromes, predicting weather conditions around the airport for anywhere from 9 to 30 hours in the future. TAF is mainly utilised for flight planning as well as planning safety operations at aerodromes. Here is an example TAF. It should look quite familiar as it uses much of the same formatting and codes as METAR. You should notice our airport code and timestamp appear as normal, followed by a second timestamp which is not found on METAR. This is called the validity time, and it is the period within which the forecast is valid. There are two types of validity time. The first is as shown in the example, 6 digits in the format of day, day, hour, 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 hour. So in this example, the TAF is valid from 0600 Zulu to 2400 Zulu on the 11th day of the month. This format is only suitable when TAF is valid within one day. If the TAF extends over multiple days, the format 4 digits /4 digits is used. We'll use the example of 0922/1018. This formatting is day, day, hour, hour, day, day, hour, hour. So in this example, the TAF is valid from 2200 Zulu on the 9th of the month till 1800 Zulu on the 10th. We then go past our METAR familiar wind direction and speed, visibility and cloud cover before arriving at 4 digits. We can also see that 4 similar digits appear 2 more times within the TAF. These are timings of different changes predicted to happen. These timings help us to split up the TAF into weather changes at different times. So our initial speed is a 10-knot wind at 130 degrees with 9 kilometers of visibility and broken clouds at 1,000 feet, as seen here. We then see at 6:08 AM Zulu time, it's becoming scattered clouds at 1,500 feet. We then see prob 30, which is a new code for TAF. Prob stands for probability. So here, the 6:08 AM change has a 30% chance of actually occurring. The next change occurs at 8:16 AM and is a temporary wind change to 25 knots, gusting 40 at heading 170, a visibility of 4 kilometers, moderate thunderstorms and rain, and broken clouds at 1,200 feet. For those who have skipped forward to this point, welcome. This is what ATIS is and how it works in ATC 24. ATIS stands for Automatic Terminal Information System, and it's a way of moving large amounts of information about an airport from ATC to pilots without interrupting radio communication. It contains useful information, such as the active runways and the current weather at an airport. It is advisable to read the ATIS of both your departure and arrival airports before receiving an IFR clearance. It is also then wise to review the information of your arrival airport once you are airborne to ensure it hasn't changed. To find ATISes on ATC 24, you need to scroll down to the ATC 24 service section, open it up and click on ATIS information. You'll then be met with a table of contents listing all of the airports within PTFS. You can then select which one you want to see the information for. For example, if I want to see the information for Greater Rockford, I would click on Rockford and it would take me to the information that's currently active for Rockford. Here you can see an example of an ATIS filed for the airport of Greater Rockford. This may seem confusing at a glance, but we will now go through it line by line and explain all the information given. The bottom of the ATIS contains a link to the current chart pack in use, which contains SIDs, which are departure routes, and STARs, which are arrival routes, which are fully optional for pilots, and you do not need to worry about these when you are starting out. Line 1 starts with the ICAO code of the airport the ATIS is for. You can find these codes listed in-game or on the ATC 24 en route chart located in the ATC 24 charts channel. This letter here, B, is known as the ATIS tag or designator. It is simply the name of this specific version of the airport's information. For example, when the information changes, the tag will move forward to C for Charlie and then to D for Delta. It is how controllers know that pilots have read the most up-to-date information. Next is the time that this version of the ATIS was filed, given in the format hour, minute. The Z stands for Zulu time, more commonly known as UTC/GMT. So the time listed here is 5:13 p.m. UTC. Line 2 is all about runways. DEP denotes the active departure or takeoff runways for the airport. Here it is 25 left only. ARR denotes the active arrival or landing runways for the airport. Here it is 25 centre and 25 right. Line 3 gives METAR, which stands for Meteorological Aerodrome Report, i.e. the current weather at the the current weather at the airport. The first item given is wind information, given in the format wind direction/wind speed. So here the wind is coming from a direction of 010 degrees at 28 knots. Please note that PTFS winds change very often, so this value is unlikely to be fully accurate. The next value given is visibility, given in meters. Note that visibility 999 actually means that visibility is greater than 10 kilometers. On ATC 24, this value never changes. Next is information about clouds, with the letters either being FEW, meaning few, SCT, meaning scattered, BKN, meaning broken, or OVC, for overcast, and the numbers being the height of these clouds in flight level. So the example here is few clouds at 3,000 feet. Next is temperature and dew point, with dew point being a measure of humidity, both recorded in degrees C, in the format temperature/dew point. So here it is temperature 12 degrees Celsius and dew point 6 degrees Celsius. These values are not simulated in PTFS and exist only for roleplay purposes. Finally, there is air pressure. Pressure is always 4 digits long. Its unit of measure depends on the letter at the start. Q stands for QNH, and it's measured in hectopascals, with typical ranges from 931 up to 1066. A stands for altimeter, which is measured in inches of mercury, typically ranging from 2,750 to 3,150. These values are not simulated in PTFS and exist only for roleplay purposes. The final lines make up a single instruction. This instruction is the same in all ATC 24 ATISes. It asks the pilot to acknowledge receipt of information Bravo, meaning say that you have information Bravo on board your aircraft and that you have read it. It also says advise ACFT type, ACFT being a shortening of aircraft. So this is asking us to say what type of aircraft we're in, and it's telling us to do that on first contact, i.e. the first time we talk to the controller. So it's asking us to say something like this when we request our IFR. Rockford Centre, speedbird 3321, is a Boeing 747 with information Bravo, requesting IFR to Perth. It is the job of air traffic controllers to update the ATIS for their airport whenever they wish to make a change, such as the chart pack or the currently active runways. It is the job of tower controllers to manage the ATIS. If tower is not online, then centre controllers can do it instead. Ground controllers never manage the ATIS. In order to manage the ATIS, you must first be listed on the online ATC panel as either a tower or centre controller. You can then come down into ATIS and run the /manage ATIS command. Correction, that's the update ATIS command. You will then be given a list of airports to pick. However, if you are a tower controller, you are only allowed to change the ATIS for your own airport, so this option will be pre-selected for you. For example, if I was on Rockford Tower, the only option available to me would be Rockford. You can then pick your arrival runways. For example, I could pick 25 right here. If you wish to select a second runway for arrival, add in a space and click a double option. If I wanted 25 right and 25 centre, I would click like this. You can then set your departure runway, and you can additionally have additional runways for this as well. Those are the only required options. Feel free to run the command like this, and everything else will be set automatically by the bot. For roleplay purposes, you can set your own QNH if you want. Otherwise, the default will be set to 1013. But if you wanted this to be different, you could enter your own number. This is for a QNH reading. You can instead change it to altimeter if you like, and set an altimeter reading. But once again, these are optional. Another optional link is to add in your own link to a custom chart pack. Thank you for watching this guide. I hope you found it useful and informative. Feel free to leave any questions in the comment section. Have a lovely day. We would go to Perth, click here, and we would be taken. Oh, you're ATC 24, where the reason you apply, turning chaos into perfect lines. We're soaring high, keeping the world alive. How the night's alive in ATC 24, we thrive. So grab the controls, let's own the flight where the heart beats.